Nangwa jera da solo.
좀 모르던 님이장 돈을 모는 좀 모르겠다. 그러다는 전도 질문도 혼돈받을 전화기 좀 상주상화대도 매바 너들 좀 된데 수대다 바상지 지체할 적대 난장 월위 셈진 엄르고 반들어가는 움스를 치고 상주상화 강다운 너다 상지지 장양아나 장양아나 고파대도 그 녀지 전보공 삼기 밑에고 디날로 잠버쯤함에 배trobe 매바 기회단 바대진서 대대진도 매바 비전노 기회단바 대대진도 대대진도 circuiter 매바 대비전노 강들 기비 장주상환도 녀지 전보 신도 담바 연노 대덕 직된지 감들 찌익찌라 샘신지 돈 신도 마을 시에된 직된지 감 직된지 감 직된지 감 담시지 점촉대를 거랍자통기장 샘신지 돈 대들 shit money so 대지 시르지나 기어담바대도 직된지 감 멈지반들 대도 용서 점버인지리가 기업석바 춥지요 대도는 산지지장자나 메토 직강지나 더타테 월월 남라 짐베도 파고 츠좀 저러 남라 츠좀지도 파고 초와 남라 조페도 파고 레로체 남라 쫀지지도 파고 심정 영화 남라 상턴지도 파고 시름 저러 남라 시럽지도 파고 마쿰버지라 남라 마쿰바 잘린 다버톤 파고 년세 밥쇼바 남라 타바 침보토노 게비 싸바 년세바 게비 싸바 마키 바르남라 게비 싸바 또도 вдовир мупо жир тагдыр генме чабыр симчин 용서 номер шепарте гевап сопи чупчупонда то раптын замбырын герва тедок санти гежанжана медов жанжып замва тедок меба чө чу тадың данна жанжып замван жиктен жикам мамжит бандони шимпуни мармат бар 상기 기장 용서 답벌은 로른 열 매바 추 겼던 단나 장집 상관 직된지 감멈지 반더니 심분이 마르넛 버 마르넛 버 상기 기장 용서 답벌은 줄 마르넛 그스나들 사나떡나들 산지 지장 용서 떡버는 로버는 겨도 쟈강지나 샘선 담설랍덕 그 반버셔버테 뜻글라는 반바 종즈경 문설로 샘선 담지지 등으로 담지 조버셔때 디 게비사 담지 샘선 담설랍 당으로 샤고 냠바당 샘선 담설라 초아메 바당 잠지 샹집 상화 담설라 톰바스타버는 시바당 투바당 마토비 추르남라 투네 머뽕와 투나 머뽕와당 잔지 니바람 척도메자 덕거 니바람 머님장 심기벌은 점바당 심기벌 sem바당 덕근 철바 소술 똑바 젠지니바 망랑와당 와요파 라가장 용돈 담치드 양덕벌 렘바테 추겨포테도 단나 샹주 상관 직된지 컴 멈지는 심포네 마르메 마르나버 상지지장 용서 떡벌은 로버는 겨로 데닐 잠바트마메 버적베 적바당 자구르 존네 기라테 떡은 코르틴 디바테 떨라 추탄베 데스터도 쪽좀 범 창와 라나메 바양 덕법 상집도 심기에도 상집 생활 춘범 창와 범 상집 생활 춘은 머티비 졸랍조 바토버 큐르도 주위 자르제 블랑미 레거스텔 급하고 讲那个维摩诘经，之前也说2句吧。第一件事情是，这个礼拜天了。
Before the class of Vimalakirti Sutra, I would like to again make a few short announcements. First one is that on this Sunday, we will have a class on commemorating the Buddha, the great teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, who showed us great kindness, and we should commemorate him. At the same time, in many places, would celebrate the holiday of his birth, of Shakyamuni Buddha's birth, which is Vesak. On the 12th was the day that mostly in mainland people would celebrate that day by bathing the Buddha statue, but we didn't do much about it. So on the 19th, in fact, this is Vesak, that's the day people all around the world would celebrate that day in commemoration of the Buddha. So we'll talk mostly about the gratitude that we should pay to the Buddha for his kindness. As a Buddhist, I think in this life, my faith towards the Buddha is very solid, very sturdy. So on that day, I would like to also share some of my faith on that day. At the same time, on that day, I will give you the oral transmission of Mipa Rinpoche's sadhana that he composed for the practice of Shakyamuni Buddha. So that's the oral transmission that I'm going to give. That's on the Sunday. So Sunday. Tomorrow, I think we'll finish the class on the Sigalovada Sutra. The day after tomorrow, we will start the class on Uttara Tantra, or the Buddha nature class. I would really like to limit the number of audience because we are currently regulating the audience, and that class is only open to people who are interested and who have auspicious connection to that sutra, to that shastra. People who are going to listen to the whole lessons. For those of you who only listen or attending classes from one time to another, then maybe next time you won't be able to register for the class anymore. This is based on our regulations. Of course, we try very best to provide all different types of opportunities for you to listen to the sutra. But we can't guarantee that you will be able to continuously have such opportunities. Therefore, I really want to as much as I want to make the opportunity for you, but it is not going to last for forever if you don't cherish it. The Buddha nature, the teaching on Buddha nature, this is the teaching that is taught by the Buddha. That's the third turning of the wheel. I'm not sure about the Vimalakirti Sutra. I think this belongs to the third turning of the Dharma wheel. The Prajna Paramita and all belongs to the second turning of the wheel of the Buddha. So the Uttara Tantra class is rather very special as well. Well, now let's get back to the Vimalakirti Sutra. Yesterday we talked about how the beings in Saha world is rather difficult to tame. And when we talk about how the beings are really difficult to convert. And I think the source of describing beings in such a way is probably from Vimalakirti Sutra. There are beings who don't really listen to the Dharma, and the Dharma doesn't seem like getting to their mind or softening their mind. All different kind of teachings couldn't really get into their mind, and let it be Prajna Paramita or Great Perfection or Sutras and Tantras, none of those could get into their mind or soften their mind. Yesterday, I don't think I did a good job in terms of explaining the 5 types of horses. That is difficult. That only can be tamed through different methods. Some can be tamed based on only upon seeing the whip from the master. Some can be tamed through whip hitting on their body, or some are only tamed through the whip hitting so hard that then get into the flesh of the horse. And similarly, there are people who only understand impermanence upon experiencing or at the time of deathbed. At the time of death, on their deathbed, they'll only contemplate on impermanence. So during the time of teaching, sometimes there are teachers who would feel that after a long period of time of teaching, I've made such great effort, and it doesn't seem that the disciple changed a bit, and you may feel rather quite disappointed. And for people who are who have a rather good connection to the Dharma, and they then have very quick change in their mind stream. There are people who only got ordained for a year or so, but it seems that they are very much adapted to this monastic life. Their body and speech are very much tamed and peaceful. And there are people after getting ordained for a decade, it doesn't seem that their actions are very much changed at all. Not only that their actions are not changed, they get even more aggregated and more angry towards others. Similarly, not only the monastics, but lay practitioners as well. Some lay practitioners studied for a long period of time, but it seems that their mind doesn't really change a bit. But there are people who only took refuge vow for a very short period of time, but they're rather very much tamed. Their mind are more pliable. So from the metaphor of this wild horse, of taming a wild horse, I really like this metaphor. I think it's very fitting, because there are students who follow me for a long period of time, but doesn't seem that the student would change much. I consider myself not as a weak person. If I were to be a weak person, I probably would have given up on students who don't listen to me after a very long period of time of listening to the Dharma teachings. And there are students who only listen to the Dharma teaching for 2 or 3 years, but it seems that they can uphold many volunteer positions and really have the aspiration of helping others. So it seems that people really have very different capacity and have very different accumulation of merits from previous lives. Therefore, I think whenever it comes to your opportunity to benefiting sentient beings, you should not expect the same thing from everyone. There are people who would, after a long period of time of studying and practicing the Dharma, not only they do not get, their mind do not get more pliable, temper get more mellow, they are rather very aggravated from the Dharma teaching. And there are people who are completely different. Even after a short period of time of studying Dharma, they change very fast. So the metaphor over here also talks about how in order to tame some wild horses, they would really hit the head of the horse, or hit the right nail on the head of the horse. Just like how lots of great masters, they would use only one sentence or one word to really hit your button, and that kind of words would be remembered by the students and tame the students' minds. But of course, that also differs. There are people who remembers just a very simple language from the Sutra or by their teacher, and they would remember it for their whole life and really memorize that. And even such a simple sentence could liberate a disciple like that. So when you're listening to the Dharma class, you should pay attention, because you never know. You may then encounter a pith instruction right in the class. It could be the teaching from Vajrayana class, or it could be some very ordinary words from ordinary teachings in a class. I myself really feel that the words that makes the difficult to tame beings to suffer to the bone is quite important, so that they will remember, and those kind of words could lead them to liberation. The Bodhisattvas from a host of fragrance land asked Vimalakirti, saying that, what is the Saha world like, and what kind of teachings does Shakyamuni Buddha teach in the Saha world? So Vimalakirti then answered by telling them the Four Noble Truths and the different kind of teachings that's taught by the Buddha, and then also explained that there are the beings that's very difficult to be tamed. When I went to Africa, the African people kept on saying that whenever you have opportunity, could you please help us to build schools and jails? Yes, jails, because they don't even have proper jails for people who've made mistakes and imprisoned, but they don't have a great facility for inmates. After Vimalakirti's introduction, the Bodhisattvas all said that how very unprecedented. This is quite wonderful. This is quite incredible. The world-honored one, Shakyamuni Buddha, conceals his immeasurable autonomous power and uses that which is enjoyed by the poverty-stricken to save sentient beings. In Saha world, many sentient beings are poor in terms of their wealth, unlike the beings or sentient beings, unlike the beings and bodhisattvas from host of fragrance pure land, whom only hears the teaching of Mahayana teaching. But the beings in Saha world, they also delight in the Hinayana teachings. Therefore, they're poor in such a way as well. The Buddha is really great because originally he could also create a pure world, manifest a pure world in front of sentient beings and enjoy a rather peaceful and enjoyable life. But in the Saha world that is full of conflicts and defilements, the Buddha then manifests in a way that his power and his wealth and his his appearance is very similar to the beings in the Saha world. In such a way, he then liberates and leads sentient beings to liberation. There's a sutra that's called the Flower Offering Sutra, where it says that in this world, the Buddha is the one supreme and unsurpassable, and the one in whom all beings in afflictions take refuge. So the Buddha's merits are far above this world, but because in this world the beings that is the object of liberation by the Buddha can only then perceive the Buddha in such a way. Therefore, the Buddha then manifests in such a way to benefit the beings, and that's why the Buddha is such a wonderful and unsurpassable teacher. Sometimes I would think and ponder on my own. There are so many masters, sages in different religions. They all have great merits, but from the aspect of wisdom, compassion, and the power, from all these three aspects, the Buddha is definitely the greatest, and this is not a praise that comes from me as a Buddhist who follows the teaching of the Buddha. Rather, I am saying this based on my logical analysis, based on my own wisdom. For example, the Tripitaka, some of the Tripitaka's teachings are translated, some are not, into different languages, and some of those texts are included in our human realm, and some are in Naga's palace, and so on. But from all of the texts that we can read and that is in this world, we can see we can have a glimpse of the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. And this kind of wisdom comes from 2,500 years ago. This kind of wisdom and compassion are worth all the praise from both the West and East, everywhere from this world. And that is why over here the Bodhisattvas all then praise the Buddha Shakyamuni. And they said that how the Buddha manifests in such a poor form to benefit the poor beings in this world. people all really likes to go to places that's rather very rich, that's very developed, that's peaceful, that's happy. But people don't really like to go to places that's underdevelopment, that is poor, and that's full of suffering and conflicts, that is on the countryside, on the rural place. I think as Mahayana practitioners, if you don't go to those places, how could you call yourself as a Mahayana practitioner who's made the aspiration for bodhicitta? I think if you could go to all those places to benefit beings, that would be quite a great thing. You should not stay in a small temple. You grow your own crops. As long as you're full, you'll be content. And this is not the kind of life that you should aspire for. Rather, in this very limited lifetime, all the things that you've studied, then if you can use all those kind of language to propagate the Dharma, to share it to people from all over the place, then that would be really wonderful. Yesterday, someone came to me and said that when I really want to spread the Dharma to each and every corner of this world. So is there such a kind of expression in Chinese? Yes? No? Maybe you should have a debate about it. So yes or no from people's feedback about they want to spread the Dharma to different corners.
要去弘扬，对吧？就是这是我们的这个佛陀的这个最顺者应该有这样的发愿。然后接下来呢，就是说这个四诸菩萨也能
Every corner. Every corner of the world, you should take the Dharma to different places of this world. And then continue from here. Then the Bodhisattvas here are also able to use their diligence. And they're also very diligent and humble. And it is immeasurable great compassion that they have all been born in this Buddha land. The Bodhisattvas such as Avalokiteshvara and the Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva and Mahasammaprata Bodhisattva and all those Bodhisattvas are all great Bodhisattvas. So all those bodhisattvas use their diligence as well as their humbleness. Just as a great sage in this society who can be very diligent and humble, then people whomsoever live close to him or work for him, they would be very happy. According to the philosophy of Mahayana Buddhists, we shall perceive ourselves as the servants of all sentient beings rather than the leader or the authority of all sentient beings. From the Mahayana's perspective, this is a view that is very closely related to how a society, how one should fit into the society. Ponsok Rinpoche has a rather very different view on people from Larungar. Whomsoever studies in Larungar, everyone are of equal in terms of status. People's wisdom could be different, their practice could be different, but it is not that everyone should have, but it is not that there should be a hierarchy based on the different titles. Yes, there are thrones, teaching thrones for masters, for Dharma masters, but whenever it comes to the Dharma assembly, whenever there's any activities, everyone is of the equal status. No one is really of any special having any special treatment. treatment.
其实这个不是很好的。如果内心当中没有什么智慧和没有什么这种
Rather than nowadays, lots of the masters in our modern time, people are called as masters, and then they will be treated with a special treatment, and they will have a big Dharma throne, or they will have bigger seats, even if their appearance, or even if they're not really that big or fitting into it. So I myself really think that it is best to have diligence and to be very humble. The teaching from Ponsok Rinpoche is very fitting to this modern society, and his teaching on being humble is quite precious. Yes, the Dharma masters receive reference from the students, but they really are not taught to be very arrogant or have any special treatment based on their status, like nowadays how the authorities and leaders are treated in the modern society in terms of their hierarchy. So, in some ways, in fact, in the teachings from Ponsok Rinpoche really taught us how to be humble. Diligence and humbleness shows not only in action but also in their mentality. I saw yesterday people were working together, and some of the Dharma masters would also join them to work together. We all know that Dharma masters, Khenpos and Khenmos, they have different understanding of the Dharma, studying of the Dharma, and the knowledge of the Dharma. Yes, so at the time they are teaching the Dharma, they then should be sitting on a rather higher place, on a Dharma teaching throne or so. But when it comes to the time after the class, then those people should also blend in with the Sangha. Also, when you're working for the Sangha and with the Sangha, do not complain. I read a story of a person who's working for a Sangha. He's a monastic, and at the end of a summer retreat, he complained to all the Sangha members. He said that I worked so hard and so diligently, but no one of you respect me for what I did. And for such kind of disrespect, I wish that you all fall into the dark realms and never receive any see the brightness. And then he locked them in a room. He was from the time of Kashyapa Buddha, and after making such evil aspiration to the monastics, he then was conceived by he then was reborn and conceived by a woman, and he stayed in the womb of the mother for 60 years because he made such aspiration of that the monastics should not see the light, and therefore he stayed in the womb and not seeing the light for 60 years. I think whenever we talk about this kind of karmic fruitions, especially during the teaching of the 100 karmic stories taught by the Buddha, then people seem to be more careful about their speech and action. But whenever we're not talking about that, it seems that people's actions and speech are rather looser than it should be. Therefore, I think by telling such a story, I really hope that it could bring you to have some cautiousness, especially if you're working for the monastics. You should be very careful when you are talking, when you're doing things. Do not use the monastics as an object to slander or to make rather disgraceful metaphors. There was another story of a bhikshu who brought his disciples all the way to the outside of the city, and this Dharma teacher, although he was renowned as the master who studied the Tripitaka, but he was then encountered by someone else on the road, and that person challenged him to debate. So this master was not really good at debating and lost in the debate. Then out of anger, he said to that person, saying that you are so aggressive and you are like the buffaloes. Yesterday, we actually encountered some angry yaks. I really think that you should not get too close to those wild animals, the yaks, and the stray dogs. Get away from them. Their horns are very sharp, and they got an angle. And if they hit you with their horn, then you could die from it. And then that moment, you should just chant Om Mani Padme Hum. Anyhow, getting back to the story, the Dharma teacher who was really upset about the other person who challenged him started to slander and started to use really foul language to slander the other person who challenged him, and his 500 disciples all followed him and started using those filthy language to talk to the other person. And out of such a kind of event, the consequences of all of them turned out to be all the 500 disciples then got reborn to be buffaloes, and the master then reborn to be as the herder. It may sound like just a story, but it has profound meanings behind it. Maybe stories from the West or the East. Sometimes you would consider or even think that it can't be a real thing, it's just a story. But you shouldn't think in such a way, because people around our age could understand what happened or the teaching behind it through the words. Also, our later generation can only understand what we had experienced through our stories as well, but maybe our stories in our future generations' eye would seem like a folklore or a fairy tale as well. So the moral of this story is that for people who really believe in karma, then you should really be aware of your own actions and speech. Especially those senior Tibetans, I think they really care a lot about the karmic consequences. That's very good to be very careful. When you make complaints, I really hope that you should then consider. In fact, I have changed quite a bit already, because I stopped complaining, especially in front of others, because I am afraid of the karmic consequences that could come out of it. Similarly, in this world, when you get angry, when you feel that sense of unjustified mentality at that moment, all of the things that you say and you do could be out of the your own personality, and it could be rather very unreasonable. Just as when I went to the prison and lots of inmates, what they did was mostly out of passion, out of anger, and not really based on their right mindfulness. So we should really have the right mindfulness with our speech and actions. So the Bodhisattva from the host of fragrance started saying that, wow, the Buddha from your land is absolutely incredible, and the Bodhisattvas in your land as well, because you are in such a really poor condition and still helping sentient beings, and that's really wonderful. And over here, this part of the Bodhisattva of this land are resolute in their compassion for sentient beings here, resolute in the Tibetan text as well as the Sanskrit version. It says that all the Bodhisattvas has deep compassion towards the sentient beings. And then Vimalakirti started saying, yes, yes, indeed, indeed. The Bodhisattvas over here, they have very sturdy compassion towards the sentient beings. I think maybe out of the blessings of the lineage masters, we have some compassion. But maybe not for everyone. Maybe not that sturdy as the Bodhisattvas over here, because when we are happy, we have lots of more of compassion. But when we're not happy, then we don't have that much of compassion. Anyhow, in this world, if we can benefit sentient beings, if the Bodhisattvas benefit sentient beings in this Sahara world, it surpasses the beings, or you could benefit more beings than that you can do in the host of fragrance world in 100,000 kalpas of practice. We have lots of hopes and we have lots of opportunities. I think Master Senjao or Master Kuiji's commentary said that a great doctor could a greatly skilled doctor could work miracles in the crowd of patients who are suffering from illness, but the same doctor cannot show his skills in a place where there's no patients at all. Another metaphor says that a general, by defeating great foe, shows his courage and his capacity. But if a general who only subjugated thieves and burglars in his whole life, then it doesn't really express his great capacity in such a way. So in our world, because all the sentient beings are suffering from great afflictions, then the Bodhisattva who has great compassion could really receive, could really benefit lots of sentient beings, and thus being called the great Bodhisattva with great capacity. According to C. Ramati, in his text of the entering into the way of Mahayana, he said that if you practice meditation for even 10 eons in other other Buddha lands, the merits accumulated cannot be equal to that of practicing loving kindness for just a short moment in this Saha world. Because in this Saha world, we have the benefits of having lots of opportunities of benefiting sentient beings. But in Pure Lands, there are rather very less to none of those opportunities of benefiting others.
那么何谓是这释法呢？首先是这个讲六波罗蜜多。其实这个释法呢，就是六波罗蜜多。
In the Saha world, we have 10 ways of benefiting sentient beings, but those kind of opportunities are not really included in other worlds. So the Saha world has 10 excellent dharmas and features that are lacking in other Pure Lands. And what are these 10 then? In the adornment of Mahayana Sutra, it then says that on one hand, whenever we go to any place in the Saha world, we see all the sentient beings that are suffering from great afflictions, and it seems that this world is full of thorns and treacherous roads. But on the other hand, this world is full of opportunities. So what are these 10 excellent dharmas that can benefit sentient beings? So the first one is the poor are attracted by charity or generosity. In Africa, in Nepal, in different places of the world, there are so many poor sentient beings who lack wealth as well as dharma. Then you could very generously help them through giving them money and teaching them dharma. Nowadays, it seems that it's so digitalized that even the beggars, they have their QR codes of receiving money on their begging bowl. I used to think that the Western countries are so developed and there must be no beggars at all, but that is not true. There are lots of beggars still. It's just their ways of begging for money are rather a little bit different. And then the transgressors are attracted by pure precepts. People whomsoever transgress their precepts then can be attracted by pure precepts. The self-liberating precepts as well as bodhisattva precepts and so on. The angry are attracted by forbearance or patience. The lazy are attracted by exertion. The perturbed are attracted by meditation. The foolish are attracted by wisdom. These 6 are the 6 paramitas. And then the next one talks about those who experience the 8 difficulties or the ones who live in the conditions of 8 difficulties, who do not have any opportunity of listening to the Dharma, are saved by explanation of how to eliminate those difficulties. And those who take pleasure in Hinayana are saved by teaching of the Mahayana. So by teaching the Mahayana, then you could then liberate the ones who delight in listening to the Hinayana teachings. And the next one, the 9th one, those without merits may be saved by the various good roots. This part then talks about to be reborn in the realm of human and celestial realm. You could use, then the liberation of sentient beings is constantly being accomplished by means of 4 attractions. So these are the 10. Some may say that why the Pure Lands don't have these 10 dharmas then. Yes, in Pure Lands there are also beings who lack of wisdom. But those are very much unlike the ones that we have in Saha world. They do have lack of wisdom in Pure Lands. There are beings who have a lack of wisdom in Pure Lands, but it is is very different than the foolishness as well as stupidity and ignorance that sentient beings have in this Saha world. It is because in Saha world we really do have the contradictory dharma that is completely opposite of the 6 parameters as well as all the other dharmas. Just as the fertile soil could grow great crops and come to fruition, similarly in Saha world we have the fertile soil of all the afflictions. If we were to be reborn in Pure Lands or in celestial realm, on one hand we can see that all the people are unlike the ones in the Saha world. In fact, I really think that in the Saha world, the interpersonal relationships are the most difficult to deal with in the current age, because many people who are working in this group are single child, are the only child. And everyone seems to have a different opinion than one another, and they cannot even have an inclusive mind to get along with others. Everyone has very different habitual patterns, and even if they live in the same room and become roommate, they cannot get along with one another. People's habitual patterns are rather quite strong. During the oral presentation, I think someone said that it is not that we don't have wisdom, it is that we don't know how to work with one another. I think that is very true. So anyhow, the 10 dharmas and the 10 contradictory dharmas, if you can see these as opportunities, as a fertile soil, then you could really give birth to the mind of great compassion, the mind of kindness, the mind of renunciation. But if you cannot take such opportunity and only dwell in your own mind, you will very quickly be left behind. I think you should become stronger in terms of the strength of your mind. And once you have a stronger mind, then you'll be able to then work through all these difficulties. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. And then Vimalakirti continue. Vimalakirti over here used his language and explained the qualities and characteristics of the Saha world. And then the Bodhisattvas asked, how many dharmas do Bodhisattvas have to accomplish in their flawless practice in this world to be reborn in a pure land? 那么这个时候呢，维摩诘居士说，我们这个菩萨呢，就是用8种法，如果成就的话呢，那在这个世界上是信者是无创无害，也就是。So how could those bodhisattvas then accomplish their flawless practice and then reborn in a pure land? Then Vimalakirti then said that the bodhisattvas accomplish 8 dharmas in their flawless practice in this world, so as to be born in a pure land. What are these kind of what are the these 8 kinds of dharmas.
增长大师的话，那就是按照我们现在
Over here, the categories and the lists are a bit different according to Master Jizang, according to the Tang Dynasty's translation, according to Master Sun Zhao's translation. They are all a little bit different. According to Master Qi, he didn't really separate those into the 8 very clearly. So over here, we will categorize it according to the 8 that's listed by Master Sun Zhao. So the listing, in fact, in the English version will be very different as well.
我们在座的各位也是一样的，我们在这个娑婆世界就是，那么维摩诘居士说是，我们这里有很多的这个机缘，我们把这8法做得很好的话呢，
Just like the dharmas or the causes that could lead one to be reborn in the Pure Land, over here the bodhisattvas then has these 8 kinds of practices as causes so that they can be reborn in Pure Lands. Vimalakirti pointed out that in the Saha world there are so many opportunities, and the bodhisattvas upon accomplishing these 8 kinds of dharmas, then they will just flawlessly be reborn in a Pure Land, and they don't have to stay in Saha world.
然后代数那个这些烦恼啊、痛苦啊，还要做回向，这是第一个。然后第二呢
The first one it says that they benefit sentient beings without seeking recompense. They experience the very suffering in place of all beings. They donate all merits from their action to others. This is the first dharma. All 3 of them are the first dharma. And the second one is in humility and non-interference. They are all even-minded towards all sentient beings. The bodhisattvas do not have arrogance towards others, and they don't have likes and dislikes in terms of sentient beings. In fact, without arrogance is quite important. It's quite important. According to the 6th Paramita Sutra that embraces the essential of Mahayana, it says that although having possessed various good qualities, one should constantly be modest and humble, just like a tree with plenty of ripened fruits, whose branch would naturally bend down. Because the fruits are all matured and all ripened, and once they ripen, then the branch would naturally then bend. Just as Mipa Rinpoche's teaching, where he says that the one with arrogance are just like are just like a tall standing tree without any fruitions, without any fruits to offer, just like that they have no merits. So the first one talks about we should benefit sentient beings and take their sufferings, and the second one talks about the equanimity towards the sentient beings. This is rather very different, because we should have love towards our relatives, and it is inevitable that we have certain kind of dislike towards people who have done wrong towards us, and so on. But towards the bodhisattvas, they should have even-mindedness towards all sentient beings. The third one says that the view of other bodhisattvas as if they view other bodhisattvas as if they were all Buddhas.
还要对那个一切众生呢，就视世如佛啊，就是把他们就是看着这个佛一样的。他这里呢，就是发了菩提心的这些菩萨呢，都要这个像佛一样。
Suragama Samadhi Sutra, where it says that towards all the bodhisattvas and sentient beings, one should view them all as Buddhas. Last year, when we were studying the Lotus Sutra, there was a bodhisattva whose name is never give rise to arrogance bodhisattva, who then constantly say that I see that you are a bodhisattva of present and bodhisattva of future, therefore I dare not to have any arrogance towards you. But let's compare ourselves towards to those bodhisattvas, and let's really look at ourselves. We usually then are very arrogant about ourselves and view other people, don't mention other people as Buddhas. We don't even see others as good people. So this is something that we need to ponder upon, considering ourselves as well as the bodhisattvas. The next one then says that they hear and do not doubt sutras they have not heard before. So the Dharma that you've heard before and have not heard before, you should all then attend those classes. And through the teaching of this Dharma, then you will be able to dispel lots of your doubts. By listening, this is really, really important. I really praise those of you who attend class regularly. In fact, that's the majority of you who diligently attend the classes. But some of you really do not listen to class, but they don't like to listen to class. They do not respect the Dharma, nor they do not respect the Dharma teachers. So why don't you teach the Dharma and give it a try? You don't even have a right view towards the Dharma. And there are people who constantly skip class. And because if you skip too many classes, you will lose the opportunity and the qualification of listening to the next Dharma class, and therefore there are people who then pretend that they're sick and they don't want to attend class. I think that you're then ill, not really physically ill. Rather, you are probably having the illness of laziness and the illness of perturbedness and so on. So for people who have arrogance and who are lazy and stop such great opportunity of listening to the Dharma, this is rather very pitiful. The opportunity of listening to the Dharma is very, very rare in lifetimes, and so you should cherish it. Next one then says that they do not become contradictory towards the Shravakas. Do not belittle the Shravakas, do not belittle such foundations. This is the first turning of the Dharma wheel. Without such first turning, how could you have the second and third turning of the Dharma? And how could you understand the second and third turning of the Dharma's meaning without understanding the foundation of the first turning? The sixth one talks about it. They are not jealous of the offering received by others, and do not become arrogant over benefit themselves. In the commentary on Vimalakirti Sutra composed by Master Sun Zhao, it says that what others experience now is based on their previous actions. Therefore, there's no need to be jealous. What you experience now is based on your previous actions, although there's no need to. Therefore, there's no need to be arrogant. Whatever other people are enjoying at this moment, it is all because of their previous life's merits. And now, whatever you experience now is based on your previous karma and previous actions. Therefore, there's no need for you to be arrogant or to be jealous of others. Without the merits, without the causes from previous life and previous actions, if you only repeat that, I want to be rich, without such causes, how could you have such kind of result and fruition of becoming rich? This is quite important to recognize the karma. The role of karma in your life. People whomsoever have jealous towards others, how could such a person give rise to bodhicitta, where you hope that every being would have the great enlightenment? If you don't even want this person to have temporary happiness or of wealth, of fame, and so on. This kind of affliction, this kind of afflictions cannot be the same as generating the aspiration of bringing every being to liberation. Some people may think that arrogance is good. It's a sign of confidence. You may feel that you have lots of merits and you're very smart and so on, but this is also something to contemplate upon. The next one, the seventh one, then talks about always reflecting on their own errors and not proclaiming the shortcomings of others. Always look at your own shortcomings. That's what the wise one would do. They would blame themselves for the things that doesn't happen, that those are unpleasant. People with good insights and with a good level of realization, their reaction would be very different than those of people who don't have good practice or understanding of the Dharma. According to Kumar Jiva's commentary, he told a story of how a Zen master who went out to look for food, and then a robber at that time was going to shoot him with an arrow. And the Zen master saying that, well, you should shoot me in my stomach because I came out to search for food because I was hungry, and therefore this is really my own stomach's problem. Mundane beings would think that you did nothing wrong. Out of no reason, this robber is going to shoot you. How could you say that this is your problem? How can you let people treat you in such a way? But great masters have this commentary saying that people whomsoever could look inward and search for the shortcomings of oneself and trying to take up the shortcomings, take up the responsibility of receiving such kind of results would be helpful to enlarge your own mind. And then in such a way, people will be less prone to hurt you. Just as when two people are arguing, one keep on blaming the other, saying that this is all your problem. And the other person would say, no, this is not my fault. Or you could see it from the other way by saying that, yes, this is my problem. It was my problem, my mistake. I'm so very sorry. But some wise people would not argue with the other. Rather, they would take up the responsibility. I think this is also a method of easing and pacifying the situation. In Tibet, whenever we say I'm sorry and so on, it doesn't really make any difference. But it seems that in the West, when people apologize, it seems like it's a big deal. There are situations where you didn't do anything wrong, but if you are apologizing for this situation, then it could really help and pacify the conflict. That's what bodhisattvas would do. Not only they express such apology, they sincerely take up the responsibility for such conflicts. There are people who really, there are people around me who really like to tell me about other people's shortcomings. Whenever people who tell me that, and then I would think to myself that, well, this person also has the shortcoming of perceiving other people's shortcoming. At the same time, have the shortcoming of the speech of naming other people's shortcoming, just as the perceiver and the perceiver who perceived other people's shortcoming also reflect oneself's shortcoming, just as a mirror which has a black dot on it shows that, just like a mirror which reflects a black dot of others, it also shows that the mirror itself has the black dot on it. Therefore, it is really best to accumulate merit as much as possible. And studying emptiness and benefiting others, this kind of merit could really benefit you because you can generate the limitless merits. There was a story of how a 100-year-old dancer. The dancer said that I've danced for the whole life, but because I don't really have to dance, but my dancing is really to teach my next generation so that they will copy and study from me. Similarly, the Buddha also, who is perfected the field of merit, but still manifest in the way that continuously to accumulate merit through different ways. Also, Ponsokgo Rinpoche never really stopped chanting mantras and was always prone to accumulate, to conduct actions that accumulate merits. I see many practitioners who would follow his action and chant mantras, use his prayer wheels, and those kind of meritorious actions became habits, and they would immerse those kind of habits in their life. So accumulating merits are not the kind of temporary activities that you would do during only Dharma assemblies and abandon all the mala and the prayer wheels at home. You can't even find them or use them in your daily life. Then if you are that kind of practitioner, you are really the kind of practitioner of hypocrisy. That's not the action of a real practitioner. You should then accumulate merit in daily life and make aspiration of being reborn in a Pure Land. So these are the 8 dharmas that the bodhisattvas can practice to be reborn to born in Pure Land. After talking that, then Vimalakirti and Manjushri explained this dharma to the great congregation. At that time, 100,000 gods and humans all generated the intention to achieve Anattara Samya Sambodhi, and 10,000 bodhisattvas attained the forbearance of non-arising of dharmas.